And here we are live again, and it's time for another in-depth dive. This time we're looking back over last week's session where we took the business of Manny St. Victor and Craig Calvert, their Mindful360.com, and we had quite a lot to say last week, so we really kind of want to dive into some of the details of that this week with a lot more of the way we reach those decisions. So we'll be particularly looking at how marketing is knowing who pays how much for what, and also looking a bit more at how we differentiate between, you know, the sort of upmarket products and the mass market products. How we know if people don't have the money to afford 2 hours of our time, how we can kind of split that up and let lots of people pay for it collectively, almost sort of crowdfunding in reverse. So those are things that we'll be covering this week, but let's first allow everyone to introduce themselves. And this week, let's start with Manny.
Hi again, Emmett. Happy to be here again. I'm Dr. Manny St. Victor. I'm a neuroscientist specializing in digital media and chief neuroscientist at Mindful360.
And I am Craig Calvert. I'm a psychometrician, which is a fancy way of saying I help people and organizations, teams, couples figure out their brains and what kind of brain that they have so that they can make better use of the brain that they do have and interface with other brains even better. So.
Yes, you measure psychos.
Yeah, I had you at psycho, I know.
Lee.
Talking of psychos, evening everyone. I'm Lee Rickler. I run Point and Stand online production agency.
Excellent. And of course, as always, I'm John's internet marketing consultant. So, wow, where do we start? Do you know what? I think we start with the very core of last week's show, which is passion. It was obvious right from the start that you two are both very passionate about your field, about what you do, and about your business. And I think that is something that makes your company even more appealing to the mass market, even while it kind of almost pushes it beyond their reach, which is why we kind of need to come up with tricks to allow them to be able to purchase it. You know, passion is one of the things that we all love to see in a business, but on the personal level, even more so than the business level. On the business level, when we're buying for our company, we tend to try to be a bit more facts and figures focused. But on the personal level, passion has us every single time. So passion is your energy, but do you find it difficult to rein it in, to harness that workhorse rather than it being a raging stallion?
Well, yes. And one of the things that that happened last week that I was going to give a tremendous thank you is that any organization is going to have what we call cognitive blind spots. Even our own organization. Just because we do it professionally doesn't mean that we don't have cognitive blind spots. But because we do what we do, we seek out other people and we listen. And the suggestion that you guys had last week of splitting into a business channel and a personal channel lets us frame our passion appropriately. It lets us be passionate about what business needs to hear, and it lets us be passionate about what individuals for personal needs need to hear. And we don't have to mix the two and try to come up with some one-size-fits-all delivery. You know, our joke that we had was that we had a mullet site, you know, business in the front and party in the back. Now we get to have sort of an exciting message in both channels. You can still be passionate, but there's just a way to frame your passion in the business world that is definitely different than when you're in the B2C channel, when you're marketing directly to individuals.
Yeah, and splitting those two was always going to be a very good move because it does let you focus, and so much of what you need to do, what anybody really needs to do with the website is have a conversation. And by having already an idea who you're having a conversation with just by what website they've gone to, that enables you to be further ahead in that message right from the start. And it is a thing that this is where microsites can come in useful for almost any kind of business. Is okay, we've got this product, we really want to push it. Well, it may deserve a microsite, it may deserve its own site, because you know always that you're talking to a particular market that are interested in that particular product. They have that particular problem when you're dealing with them on that site.
One of the things that, if I could just bring up something that is also beneficial from last week, is getting us to think more in terms of what can we provide at the 15-minute level, at the 30-minute level, at the 1 hour level. And look, you mentioned, just to keep on the passion topic, we're so passionate to make sure that people come away with a very deep understanding. Well, that takes some time. It takes an investment, not just of time, but of mental energy. It can be an exhausting assessment process whenever you do the entire process.
Yeah.
But getting us to think about what are these baby steps that we can have where people can start getting parts of, even just understanding a part is still better than, it's a lot better than nothing. There's value in understanding one facet of it.
The journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step, and sometimes that first step, however small, is the most significant one, because after that they've got momentum. So getting that first step is the big point. This is one of the reasons why I suggested when we originally spoke about getting the testing down so that there was a minimum viable personality test that was still good. It wasn't as accurate, but it was only going to cost people the price of a cup of coffee. And the idea of that was it needs to cost something, because for this to mean anything, you've got to be committed. There's a lot of people who fill these things in like they're doing a horoscope. They've got no real belief in it, no real commitment to it. And I think unless people are willing to stump up a little bit of money, that's going to be the case. They're not going to pay attention. One thing I found for years, talking in forums and sharing tips on SEO, blog posts and all kinds of in-depth articles, people would hire me and they hadn't read any of the free stuff. Because free advice is kind of, yeah, okay, it's worth free. It's worth nothing. It was interesting, but they viewed it more as marketing material instead of as answers. Whereas the minute they started paying, they listened properly to the advice that was coming, and it wasn't that different. But the fact that they'd paid for it made them commit to it, made them listen more carefully, and that made them learn more from it. So it was more valuable to them.
Manny, you looked like you're about to say something a few minutes ago, and I wanted to make sure that we don't have you reined in too much over there.
Well, no, I'm just thinking about some of the stuff that Emmett said, so it's resonating.
Okay, so we talked about mass market products last week, and I think one of the things I wanted to follow up on this week was what are those kind of products?
Well, one of the first things that we did was we created our own easier assessment tool that doesn't take very long, that we brought our experience to bear, because even though we do take, and we're not going to step away from the position that free assessment tools are varying degrees of inaccuracy, and that you don't want to base too much of a life plan, of a business plan on these tools. But that doesn't mean that they don't have value and that they can't start pointing people in a certain direction. So that was the first thing we did, was we now have our own Mindful360 assessment tool. It has been developed. It's not up on the site yet because I've been a little busy building both sites, so it's only been only 24 hours in a day and all. But that's the next step, is to get that up on the personal site. I'm open for suggestions on this one, but I don't see a benefit of putting that on the business site. I don't. That's not what we lead with on the business end. But on the personal side, that gives us something what to do with all the traffic that comes in. It gives them something to do immediately, rather than just relying on them to explore the site. It gives something that they can use to explore themselves. So that's something that I'm real happy that we took the step to do.
If you wanted something fun to do that you've basically already built, and it wouldn't take that much extra to do, on the professional site, do an area for students that is a profession generator. It's a suggested profession generator. It's got your little test, and it suggests it asks them a few other questions, and it suggests from that what they might like to do as a career, and it can help them find more resources on that and investigate it. That could be very, very linkable.
Very easy for me to build because I already have that data.
Yeah.
So, profession generator on biz site. We've also, one of the questions that I know that I had, it's not whether or not to do a newsletter. Okay, that's not the question. I know that we need that's something to add to our mix. The question is more about if we have what's the split between blog activity versus if I write content, I've got to go, all right, do I make this a blog post? Do I condense it down for the blog post and have a longer version for the newsletter? What do you see as the best mix for what we're doing? I mean, this is something that I do find some unique challenges since we're in the neuroscience field, trying to bring neuroscience to people who may not be familiar with the concept of what we do. Like, it can be a whole new idea to a lot of people.
Yeah. Your website is your hub. That's where everything's happening. So all of your other activities are to drive business, and most of that is going to be through your website. So articles go on your website. Basically, they're your blog posts or your in-depth articles. The newsletter is there to get people to those articles. Is to say, here's what we've written that you might well be loving this month, having seen that we've done this, this, and this. So you'd put the article up as a blog or a series of blog posts even. You could serialize a really good article. And at the end of each month, you kind of say, right, here's our best content of all the things we've done this month, and almost a magazine format.
Right.
Where you're highlighting the feature articles of that month, which would be, a couple of videos, a couple of in-depth articles, and a couple of lighter things, and a bit of news. And usually, testimonial or two in there as well. Just as a, and by the way, these clients, we finished with, and here's what they had to say, and thank you very much. Just
testimonials has always, it's been one of our challenges. Not that our clients aren't happy, but it's why some companies tend to bring us in. It's when something has gone very wrong, where there's a conflict, and we're both talking about different ways that we can help turn those into manage that testimonial process, because there tends to be no, we're keeping this secret because we're a family business, and we had you guys come in to keep us from slitting our own throats in the dead of night, and this is something that we want the public to know about.
And even in the case of larger organizations, admitting your blind side is an amount of vulnerability that on the outside they don't necessarily want.
With the larger companies, just go through the HR department. The HR department has no problem saying that you've been very valuable, because they manage so many staff with the HR department that's it's still invisible to who it may be referring to. Whether it's one team, another team, the whole company, or two people, that's invisible, but the HR department will often still give that recommendation. Sometimes you need to kind of think of incentives, and where that comes in. That's something you let a client know up front is, here's the regular price. By the way, though, if this is something you're willing to give an interview about afterwards, we can offer you this much off. Because that helps our marketing, which reduces our costs, and therefore we can pass that on to you. And that's a kind of very open, transparent way of incentivizing it and giving them a reason to, or letting them realize, yeah, my privacy is worth that extra $50, which it may well be good for them, So,
go ahead.
Some of the products that came to mind as specifics. A writer's guide to personality types for realistic characters.
I already picked up 3 clients this past week through the Hangout last week that were people looking for writing assistants.
Excellent.
So,
excellent.
Thank you.
And seriously, a book there. I mean, I'd like a hard copy book for $20 to $30, and an ebook for $20, kind of thing. That was how to take characters where you've got particular events you want them to do, or they're in a particular role. What kind of personality type would this be, and what else does this mean? How do I make this personality more realistic? But a writer's guide. So it is a handbook for all writers to have on hand, even the ones doing biographies, because it may help you spot if the thing is in there. What kind
it helps
of
spot the trend.
Yes.
That is occurring in someone's life, and lets you unpack the trend that you might not have even known was there in the first place.
Bingo. So, what you'd be trying to write there is the handbook on this, the book that every writer would have close by. But that can be a whole series of books. The Teacher's Guide to Personality Types in the Classroom is, understanding what different personality types are there in your students, why this person is misbehaving, why that person seems to have ADD, why this person really, really quiet, seems to pay really great attention, and yet when you actually talk to them, they don't seem to be listening at all. Those kind of things, and how
I even love telling teachers there's one particular type, it's INFJ, that they are most focused when they're looking out a window. So a teacher, like, hey, Johnny, eyes on me back over here, guess what? You just reduced his ability to pay attention to you.
We've got to pull this one up. What personality types leave the best testimonials?
I can tell you right now, ENFP. ENFP, hands down, they're the ones that will just, even if they don't like you, they'll give you an effusive testimonial. It's an amazing thing about that type. They're wonderful. They're wonderful to have as friends for that very reason. It's just they're just yes, ENFP, hands down.
Excellent. So he also threw up a really good tip on how to use the blog and the newsletter, and he says, popularize neuroscience and yourselves through the website, recap it on the newsletter, maybe with something new on there about the business itself. But particularly, remember, you are going to be the champions of your area. You are going to be thought leaders in your area and helping others to understand what it is and what it does for them all the way through, and the newsletter is to help you recap that. You want the people who are coming to your site regularly to have stuff that's for them. They are your early adapters. They get the first spot of the news. And the monthly newsletter is for people who aren't visiting unless you prod them to. It's giving them the same thing, but later.
That brings up a point that I had not thought of, because this idea of breaking the site into business and personal is still so fresh. We already have the buckets for business. We have, like if you're in for healthcare, we've got a spot on the site for you to go. If you're in for educate, but on the personal side, so far I've just split it into personal and couples, and I hadn't really thought of having like a landing page for if you're a writer, go here. If you're a student, go here, and having buckets for the personal track.
Yeah, I'd be half tempted to put that in the professional track, even though it's a one-to-one, a more personal kind of thing. It's still about business, whereas the personal is not going to be seen in the same way. So it's kind of like the obvious ROI, things that will help you make money really obviously, is the business stuff. The stuff that is helping your business run is still the business stuff. The stuff that is health, wellness, and personal development, where there isn't an absolute bottom line, that I think is where you're going into the personal side, the coaching, the life coaching kind of stuff.
Right. Interesting. Is there an SEO? Whenever if I identify something that needs to be on both, for example, is there an SEO hit? I'm still a little fuzzy. I mean, I followed SEO very closely up until around 2010, and I studied it less closely since 2010. I know back in the day, having duplicate content was very bad, and I'm not sure what the current. What's your current opinion? Do I need to split and really change up the content where it's different on both sites?
Yes, ideally you want unique content on both sides. So I tend to try and think, right, where does this really belong on the ontology? Is this more this site than that site? If so, I can have a page there that's directing people, that's being the intermediary, but I would have the content on that particular one. Partly because it lets people know you've got two businesses, including the search engines. It lets the people see what the difference in focus is, which may open up a whole new avenue of thought for them.
Right. It's an excellent idea.
Let me just quickly see if Bill wants to jump in here, because he's more than welcome. So definitely one of those products is the writer's guide. Another one is definitely the sales guide, the salesman's guide to personality types, with some questions that they can ask and things that they can observe that help them work out what personality type they're dealing with and how to address that type more effectively, more meaningfully.
Which is, I like that recommendation. What we currently have is a full day training session. It's a very in-depth, on-site consultation that we do, that we just hadn't thought of converting into, an ebook, for example.
Yeah. Yeah. There could even be a parent's guide to your child's personality type, which is, helping them understand that. For the ones that aren't ready for the workshop yet, this could be that intermediate step. This could be the thing. They get the book first, they're able to spot the type, or they send them to the, they use the test. They understand them a bit better, but they've still got some problems, and that's where they want the personal help. And one of the key things we were talking about last week is that personal help. That, okay, I kind of get it, but can you do it for me? That's your premium playground. That's where people are paying the money, and not afraid to pay the money.
Yep, and it'd be valuable for helping a child as well in the development process.
So for SEO, definitely, focus things one place or the other. The big tip I always think is underused these days for SEO is make the site as lean and efficient as possible. One of the very first things I'll look at on a page when I'm evaluating it is right-click, look at the code, how much code to get that much content. And when the content is below sort of 10% of the code of the page is going to be actually rendered, you're in issues. Now, where you've externalized some of that content, I'm afraid this is going to get very slightly technical for people, where you've got your cascading style sheets on an external CSS file, where you've got your JavaScripts in JavaScript files, they're not embedded into the page, that's great. because the browsers that can't use them don't get them, which includes search engines. Search engines aren't really interested in that stuff. They'll look at it to make sure you're not doing anything iffy with it, but most of the time the page speed that is the minimum one. That's the one that they're looking at. How fast will this page load? And the smaller you can get that code, the better it's going to be.
Hi, Bill. Hey, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. For those who don't know Bill, well, shame on you. How can you not know Bill? Bill, introduce yourself. Say hello.
Okay. I am the Director of Marketing for Go Fish Digital, and I write at SEO by the Sea. I'm from the Washington, D.C. area. I've been helping to promote websites since 1996. Back before there was an Alta Vista and before there was a Google. So, sort of been watching them grow up as I go along.
Yeah. People really do have trouble imagining an internet before Google sometimes, and it's still that precocious new kid. It is.
I'm glad they lost the back rub name.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, I always expected it to burp.
And Yahoo getting rid of their Ben & Jerry's directory of the web. Now
Yahoo getting rid of everything they bought that was profitable, pretty much. Yeah. But Yahoo have this brilliant ability. It's the opposite of a Midas touch, isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything they touch turns to a corpse.
So to spring back to what you were saying a few seconds ago, the idea of adding something for salesmen.
Oh yes, basically a book, a sales guide to personality types.
One of my favorite books on sales is one called Questions That Sell. And it discusses with the salesperson how to ask people the right questions, and how to move on from the answers to those to asking more of the right questions.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that adding an understanding of personality types to that.
But the interesting thing is that the right question for one customer may not be the right question for another, and although you hope that those questions are helping you work out which customer is which, there are personality types who freeze under questioning, and
right.
Knowing that is a key thing in itself.
And some personality types, some questions are like repellent to them. They're like insulted that you would ask that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd even like to point out that there can be a space for multiple templates and multiple books and multiple workshops on this one, because there could be one book that an intuitive type can read and go, I got this. I've internalized this entire model and approach. When I go sell, I'm there. There are other types that's like, I need a grid. I need a checklist. I've got to have, so if I see, and they work well in that format. So we've actually got it in both. And so,
well, this is it. With the books, with all of these books, I really see these as premium products that you put the time into, where it covers all three methods. And it's something I've talked about before. When you're going to explain something, explain it three ways. So you've got it in the plain facts, you've got it in
intuitive
an
role
analogy
play
they don't
examples.
have to reach too far for, and you've got the big one as well that kind of you've got to put it big for the imaginative types. You've got to put it on a big stage for them to really play with the idea. So do it the three ways, and that still gives you the benefit of repetition, even for those who can see that you're going through it. You're not going through it the same way, so it doesn't get tedious. But it does give you that repetition, and I find that you just get so much more people going, wow, that's the first time I've really got that, because you've also translated it for them.
Right.
because they can see that you've explained it 3 ways, and they've heard that one before, but it never registered until they got that version.
The conversations that we've had with salespeople, there's usually a good crossover in the room of guys that are like, oh, hey, I've done that. I've done that before. I just didn't know what it was called. You know, they didn't realize that or they didn't know the why behind it. They knew that something worked, but they didn't know why it worked. And the thing is, when you know why something works, it lets you grow beyond the book and grow beyond the spreadsheet and go, I'm going to create my own questions using this technique.
Exactly.
You know, and I'm going to be able to personalize it to like a particular product instead of being too template driven.
Yeah, because
another very, very wide area to look into and think about applying this concept of understanding personalities is training. One of the best classes I took during one government job I worked at, was a train the trainer class. It was over a period of 5 days, and it helped us get into the mindset that different people learn different ways, and some people prefer discussion, some people prefer presentations, some people like hands-on approaches, and adding an understanding of personality types to people could
well, that's something that
somebody got the video on in the background.
To education strategies, which actually deal with adolescence as readily as it does to corporate training. It's the same principle. Like Manny and I, we make up about 4% of the population, our personality type. And you don't train us the same way that you would train, say, the most common type, which is ESTJ. Totally different training techniques. And if you use the technique that works for us on the common type, they'll stab you in the neck with a pencil before 10 minutes is out. It'll drive them crazy. So,
yeah,
you stick us in a normal training room, and Manny and I are looking around for buttons to push and switches to flip, and you know.
Now, this brings us to the other thing that I suggested last week, and this was, you know, getting some educational resources there that you can give away, feel good about, that are going to spread your message wide, help you get in with teachers and educational authorities, and of course get you known to some parents and some people who will be entering the workforce later. And you know, I mentioned Psych 101 last time, but I'd also think of a guide on how to moderate peer pressure for kids, so that this could be something very popular in areas where gangs are common, and it's very difficult to resist that, and ways that they can spot how they're being pushed, to understand, you know, what's going on, the games people are playing around them, but also some good strategies for how to say no without losing all cred. And you know, a guide on that I think would be exceptionally popular in some places, not as something to monetize, but as something to give away that will make you feel good, that will make a real difference, that will enable you to see that, yeah, you know, we'd love to be doing this for everybody, we have to focus where the money is, but this is what we can do when we focus where the money is. It gives us the luxury of being able to give things away smart, that makes a big difference. Not, you know, sorting out the fact that, you know, 2 housewives are going to feel better about themselves, but that a whole generation of kids have access to information that can help them. On a similar thing, you know, a guide aimed at teenage girls, how to how to have push-resistant buttons, understanding the manipulation that boys and their friends might put them under, that might make them make decisions that aren't so good.
You mean might?
Yeah. You know, again, that's going to be a very, very popular product that will make you feel happy, will make the community feel happy, that is going to potentially get you some very good press as well as some very good connections. And I'd even think of one that was, again, more in the child's interest, which, was kind of child to adult and is about how to go about properly expressing that you are now becoming more mature without getting into that thing, damn it, treat me as an adult, and having a tantrum and making yourself look less mature. Kind of helping them make that transition, because that is such a hard part for teenagers. Is that, understanding that certain things mean you've got to step up and take more responsibility. It's no good just saying you're old enough to be treated this way. Have you proved it? Have you taken responsibility? Showing them the kind of things that will help them get more power in a meaningful way and have more meaningful relationships with their parents. In that, let's face it, that's a tricky time of life for all sides concerned. Most parents dread teenage. Most teenage dread parents. It's that simple.
Yeah, the teen years is basically one long period of what we call in our field, the teens are in almost constant shadow function, shadow type. There's a reason that they act the way that they do, and it's actually good to have an understanding of that. It makes the job a little easier as parents. It doesn't necessarily change the teen's behavior, but there's a big difference between participating in frustration and observing frustration. It lets you distance yourself a little bit when you know why something is going on.
Yes, and mindful ways to ease that frustration, because that's going to make life a lot easier for all concerned.
Well, our brains aren't done developing until mid-20s. This is a hard message to give to the 22-year-old executive, which we've encountered, some high performing, and we have to tell, I don't care if you're making six figures in your 20s, you're not ripe yet. You still have another 3 to 5 years of growth left, and you're still going to make dumb decisions somewhere. It's a given, no matter how smart someone is, until the brain is kind of finished baking, it's going to make some real blunders along the way.
It's going to make them after that, I can assure you. But personally, my brain's not finished developing either.
And not right now, kiddo.
One of the things that basically neuroscience has discovered in recent years is we used to wonder about how memories were transcribed into the brain, and now we know that the brain actually sort of changes shape around them, that the brain develops and builds new paths to yeah, exactly. So to an extent, our brains are always growing. Maybe not overall, but yeah, I don't intend to let mine ever decide it's finished until they've buried me.
I agree. And that's part of health and cognitive flexibility. And we like to joke and call it cognitive yoga, because a lot of times it's not good enough just to be smart in one direction. You need to be able to reframe, re-represent questions so that you have the right answer with less work.
Right. Is that trendy enough, or does it have to be cognitive Pilates these days?
I'm not doing Pilates. I need to give it a fresher name.
Yeah, cognitive kickboxing. There you go. That's getting in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure why my camera's not coming back on. Just to let you guys know. So I may be stuck with. You may be stuck with the brain avatar.
Oh. Oh. Okay. Yeah, you've disappeared into your black screen.
I like that one.
Okay, so for the sort of final segment of the show, considering we're about 2/3 in, we've got about 1/3 to go. Let's go back to that key thing: who pays how much for what product? Because this is something that we did deal a lot with last week, and we've touched again on it this week. But it's something that I think translates to everybody watching, and it translates to why I'm a marketer. Is I love this stuff, and it is the thing that isn't always obvious to people. that old business used to come up with something, create it, go, oh, I could sell that. So scale it up, produce it like mad, and then send out people to try and find buyers for it. And marketing turned that around. It said, right, before we bother with the production line, before we bother, even designing a product, what have we got the strength to do? But more importantly, what are people asking for? And they would look out for all the things that people were demanding, asking for, whether it's a cheaper this or a faster that or something that does this. They would look at all those demands, try and work out which ones they were well positioned to solve, look at what it would cost and say, right, within that price, is there a market there? Is there somebody already wanting to buy this before we even built it? And then you build it. And that's marketing. So one of the things that we talked about last week was the idea that, for things to become accessible to everybody, when there are, two very smart guys who could be earning an awful lot of money involved, and you can't expect your average Joe to be able to afford, the two of you for an hour as an ordinary everyday kind of product. He needs to be built up to that kind of level. He's got to have a serious need before he's going to be paying a few $100. So one of the things that we look at, let's use a programming acronym here, the WORM, WORM. Write once, read many, and that's one of the reasons why I'm saying about these books as a great product, but also your videos, is that this is something you spend your time creating once, and then you can sell it again and again and again and again and again. Now, of course, it's an upfront investment for you guys because it's got to be written, and these books do not write themselves overnight. With your passion, they'll come along a lot faster than you think. You'll probably end up spending more time in the editing phase than in the writing phase. But this is the stage of your business where you can do that kind of thing. Later on, where you've got lots of bookings and seminars and things taking you all over the place, that will actually become harder. So, to an extent, I think you've got more time to invest in this kind of thing now. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense.
Yes.
It's definitely laid out my next 30 days, that's for sure.
And on the same basis, we've got the books, the video products, downloadable video courses or buyable on DVD video courses, and the automation of, the easy test that people can do for a few bucks, that kind of thing. Especially if they can then, buy an instant report that tailors it for a particular need. So they do a personality test. It's not 100% accurate. It lets them know tolerances, but it says, now if you want, the pack that says how you use this to develop your career within this kind of career, that's so many dollars extra. And here's this thing, and that's so many. You can have bolt-ons to that tailor it specifically to people as a next step before going into a seminar, before needing a one-on-one consulting. Which again, it takes something that's quite valuable, makes it extremely valuable, and makes them say, wow, what's behind the paywall? What would I get? If this is what they can write for everybody, what would they have just for me?
Mm-hmm.
I wish you could see me nodding furiously. But yes, I'm agreeing with a vengeance.
The next step up for that is the thing where it's not right once, but it's the one-to-many presentation. This is the seminars and the workshops. Whether it's groups of 5 or groups of 500, the principle is still the same. You're sharing the cost of that time across a lot of people, and that makes it affordable to them. It makes it much easier for them to say, yeah, I can afford that, and do it. One of the reasons that it's easier for you to sell this to businesses is that they're already doing that. They buy once and they know they get several people out of it. They know that it fixes a whole team, or it empowers a whole team, or if a boss takes a course, he knows it's going to affect his relationships with all of the people he works with in future. So they're already getting that. Go on, Bill.
So to market that, to market those types of seminars. There are possibly some models that you could review and use. Look at what people like Anthony Roberts is doing. There are people who give business seminars on a regular basis from one spot to another who on their websites offer different packages and describe what they focus upon. So you can have the building self-assurance package. You could have the Long Island medium package where you pull people up and tell about their past and focus solely upon them. Maybe a few people like that. There is a lot of variety out there. There's a lot to choose from. There's a lot to look at in terms of what other people are doing. That you don't have to imitate them, but if they can inspire you to do some things that you might not have otherwise done that may improve what you offer, it's worth looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. So finally, the product of doing it for them, the one-on-one counselling, which started off being a much bigger part of your process, is now that's just your premium line. That's your top of the line product. And as time goes on, you'll find in some ways it's the least profitable because it's the least scalable. Yeah, because to scale that, you've got to take in more people. You've got to take in more Mannys and more Craigs. You've got to take in more people who can do what you do. Mm-hmm. Beyond a certain point. Whereas
I think two is enough. Two is enough of us for the planet. I assure you. You don't.
It's possible to scale in places where you might not consider it. Look at the Blue Man Group. The three guys all painted blue, but there's more than just three guys.
Yeah.
Ours requires a little bit more than blue paint, though.
Right.
There's a knowledge set that goes with it. But the scalable part to me is more on the ebook end, which also gives us that helps with credibility. Publications help with credibility on the business side.
Massively. And Amazon make it quite easy now to publish hard copies as well as ebooks, and I would seriously look at a sort of $30 level hard copy book, even 30 to 40 if you get the content. If you create something that is a definitive writer's guide to personality types, yes, people will easily pay 30, 40, even $50 for that if it's premium enough.
Gotcha.
So, and a hard copy, that's exactly what you want with that kind of book when it gets to that stage. And I think just making it as a hard copy these days, in an age where more and more things are ebook only, it shows a level of commitment to quality that I think goes a long, long way. I personally think less of a book that's only available in ebook format. I do. Mm-hmm. I know I shouldn't, but I do.
Well, some things actually lend themselves well to print copies. I mean, if you need to, for a sales call, if your particular scenario needs to have you looking at a chart that's on page 14 and another resource that's on page 73, it depends on, how big is your screen. Do you have the screen real estate to have two tabs up at once? I mean, sometimes low tech is actually a better solution for, like, cookbooks. I actually deal better with physical cookbooks than I do with them in ebook format.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about splatter as much.
But also, one of our friends, Christopher Vogelman, was pointing out he still loves to write in the margins, and I think a lot of us do that. We still like to, dog-ear pages and mark it that way. I don't care what they come up with electronically. It's not the same as those things.
You can write in the margins with Google Docs.
Yeah, it's not as easy, is it?
But
It's not as easy. You can. Kindle actually has some things that allow you to put notes on books, but it's not the same.
But I like the kinesthetic aspect. Like.
But it is, to me, it's always shown a level of commitment to the product when somebody has also got a hard copy of this book. It's a serious book.
many people buy books not to read them immediately right away, but to have them on the shelves as a reference resource or when they're going to need them. And if you're a professional writer, if you're an amateur writer, and you want to become a better writer, it's one you're going to use as a reference resource. If the people who wrote the book set it up that way, so that it can be.
It's a bit like in our field, we see a certain amount of hangouts where you get people and they've always got the bookshelf in the background. And they've always carefully arranged David Ammonize's semantic search book to the front, or Jay Benner's utility. And you think, hang on, that's been out a while. What? You've still not got around to reading it? Is that why it's at the front? Surely you've bought one book since then. You know what I'm saying? Well, that can be your book that the writers are put in there, and the social media guys, to have up there. They can't do that with a Kindle. So there's another reason. Always have a hard copy book if you can. Oh, we sent Bill researching. Oh, the SEO book.
Okay. I recognize that cover.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm named in that one. I know that one.
Oh, no.
Yeah, they were so lucky that Google then did an update called Hummingbird after they put a hummingbird on the cover. Just talk about serendipity. Okay, I'm going a little bit off topic there. We're coming towards the end of the show. Are there any last questions kind of thing that you guys have, Manny and Craig, regarding anything to do with implementation or anything we've discussed?
Yeah, there was one that I had. You partially answered it already. One of the challenges that I started thinking about when I split things into two sites is, how do I let people on the business site know about the personal site, and how do I let people on the personal site know about the business site? I mean, like design-wise, where and how do I highlight that relationship? Doing that through the blog posts, excellent suggestion, because I hadn't thought of that one. I currently have the call to action area on each site pointing to the other site. Like on the biz site, I have, are you looking for, I forgot the language I have, but are you looking for, personal services, life coaching? Check out this other site, our other site. And then on the personal side, I have the exact same thing, except, are you looking for business services? Check out our business site.
It sort of reminds me of people who have e-commerce websites and put Google ads on them. It's like, okay, so we're making 3 cents every time somebody clicks on an ad. Yay. People are clicking on ads, leaving their website, not buying their products. So they're losing money every time somebody clicks on one of those ads. When you have a call to action that is completely in the opposite direction of the focus of your website, you're potentially chasing customers away. Even though you're chasing them to yourself, you're making it less likely that they're going to buy that day.
One of the interesting things years ago that people looked at, and I particularly think of, let me see, Jared Spool, wasn't it, Bill, who did Gaining Confidence from Lincoln?
Right.
He looked at...
in the 16th president, Lincoln, but...
Yeah. The idea was, people had said, how many links deep from a homepage content could be, otherwise it was useless, and there was this, it's 3 links, if they can't get there within 3 clicks they give up. And he found, through testing, absolute nonsense. And he tested various numbers, nothing seemed to have correlation. He found one thing that had correlation. He devised a whole series of tests, and he asked people where they thought they were going and how confidently when they clicked on the link. And after they got there, Is this what you expected? And how confident are you that you're still on the right track? And the more confident they were, that was the thing.
People would go page after page after page, as long as that scent of information was still alive, as long as that confidence that they were getting to where they've been promised they were going to go to was still there. They clicked. 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, they clicked.
Yeah, even 17, 18 times, seriously. You know, if the path is good, you follow it. And especially if it's an interesting path and you can see that you're getting closer and closer to your destination. You're not going to be that guy who swam across the English Channel, got 3/4 of the way there, decided he was too tired and swam back. You know, when you know you're on the right path, the more distance you've gone, the more determined you are to keep going till you get there.
So would you say the recommendation is to take that off the homepage, out of the call to action area, have the linkages performed elsewhere in the site?
I'd have your about page for each site. Obviously, have your sister site on there. You know that this is the business one. This is the. Then I'd look at it on a product by product basis, and say, you know, occasionally don't be afraid to say, you know, right, this you know, professional coaching is similar to what you may have seen in personal coaching, such as and here's your link to your personal coaching version of the same product, but here it is specifically focused on the things that will help you escalate up your career, rather than your personal relationships or your, you know, how well you're sleeping at night.
Right.
So,
Amazon.com, on their front page, they have 2 links. One of them is already a member, click here. Need to register, click here. They bring you to the same page.
yeah, with every page,
Edmund,
what you
with
want.
their website, yeah. Sorry. Edmunds, with their website, they had the same type of thing. Looking for a new car, click here. Looking for a used car, click here. Both of them brought you to a page where you could register. Mm-hmm.
So it's about like the cognitive process you take when you click that link, sort of what you're saying to yourself.
Saying, I'm going to the right place. I'm going to a place where I can buy a new car. I'm going to a place where I can buy a used car. In that situation, it's the same place. With what you offer, where there's a potential personal development aspect to it, or there's a business aspect to it, you could potentially lead both people to a page about how understanding personality helps you do things that you otherwise couldn't do.
They'll have elements of that on both sites anyway, but we're just moving towards splitting them because the language you need for the business client is predominantly about ROI, whereas the language for the personal is much more about what they get out of it. It's kind of less tangible benefits in a way and has to be explained in a different way, whereas the business needs that ROI focus.
Yeah, and that's definitely on our task list this week. Is now that we've created the 2, it's time to start taking the copy. Like, there's duplicate copy right now because, like, for example, there's a section on the business site that talks about the assessment tools, and it's the same assessment tools that we have for the personal. But we've got to go through and,
yeah,
you know, that's definitely going to take some work this week, no question.
It is the same belief that fuels both. It's the belief that understanding personality makes you more effective, whether it's at business or at having a better life.
Yeah, although we do take a subtle difference on that one. We actually don't say that personality type is the pathway to self-knowledge. We say that understanding the mental functions and their hierarchy, it's a deeper level, because personality type, if all you know is that you're ENTP and like to brainstorm and then you're done, well, you can't do anything with that. Knowing that forms make us go crazy, that's a different type of understanding. That's knowing that introverted sensing is our Achilles heel. And having that level of knowledge.
But I think on the front end, one thing Emmett had mentioned is we don't want to make it look too challenging before they've taken the first step.
Right.
So I think we just abstracted the personality type just so they can chew it.
I agree.
It's one of those things. Don't be afraid to show them the rabbit hole, and don't be afraid to make it comfortable to walk as far down it as they want. But always have that emergency teleport to where you can get their money. You know, always know the way back out and the way to immediately take it to something useful. So don't let it get so abstract that they can't now see the usefulness anymore. You know, we always want them to see that do you remember the elevator pitch we talked about last week, which was smarter decisions through better understanding? That's the thing we don't want them to lose at any point. That they always get that core concept, and then everything else highlights it, adds interesting nuggets to it, but they never lose that, and they can just go, right, sign me up. I'm going to take one quick question here because it's been there for a while, and I don't often plug my own stuff. No, I do this for absolutely anyone. If you've got an established business, if you've got a project that's just on your mind, if you're still planning the project and you want to come on Ammonize to discuss it, absolutely. You know, this show is here's my brain for an hour, let's go, and that's what you're getting. Okay, I hope that answers the question. So, wrapping up for this week because we're on the time. Let's go in reverse order. Bill, you came in last, so you can be first to give us your thoughts.
Okay, one of the things that struck me right away was if I'm an INFP, I believe that's a personality type on that scale. How would I be impacted by some of this stuff in terms of business training, in terms of education, so on? I'd like to see maybe some testimonials with different personality types attached to them on the website.
Interesting.
That's a really good idea. I like that.
Because we actually, I just didn't put the personality types in the testimonials. I have that information, and I can reach out to the people that, and I've assessed other INFPs, by the way. So I actually do have specific testimonials from INFPs.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. So, Craig.
Well, my biggest take, I couldn't even, I'd have to have an hour to even discuss what I feel are the takeaways from all this one. We've been very, very thrilled with the different perspectives because it's given us exactly what we would have, if we had to predict, what would we have gotten from this project? Manny and I both had a feeling that, okay, we're going to get some tangible ways we can bring our abstract ideas back down to the ground where they need to be. And we've gotten exactly that. I mean, just the ideas of taking content that we already have in seminar and workshop format and putting them into an ebook format that's not rocket science, but wow, it hadn't occurred to us. It never made its way to our to-do list. And now it's at the top of our to-do list. Some of the technical aspects have been very useful. Some things I'm having to learn how, like I know what the problem is, but I'm having to learn how to fix it, which has been kind of another fun rabbit hole to go down. But I definitely appreciate the technical comments. Those have been quite useful. And lastly, the splitting into two divisions, that is going to be huge for our business. It's already having an impact. So thank you.
I really love the fact that you've already had 3 clients come to you for the writing assistance. I think that's absolutely wonderful, and it shows how getting it specific so that people can see what's in it for me. You know, yeah, neuroscience is fascinating, rah rah. What's in it for me? That's the point at which suddenly those credit cards start coming out. So, you know, those books, I think, will be a huge part of that. Don't forget, when you're running the seminars and workshops, video them, sell the video for $10.
All right.
Manny.
It's been an eye opener for me because the clarity of hearing something put out in specific sets of words is really useful, because in the past I have been consulting friends of mine for films and stuff, for characters for films, and that's writing, and until you said it, well, how about personalized writers? The clarity of that is just really helpful.
Yeah. Try and get some of their testimonials, some of their thoughts, because that will also help you focus the book. If you know what they in particular love to learn, then you can make sure that, you know, you've got those kind of lessons in there as well. It just helps you really get that book right, because you want that book right. You want your book to be the one that every writer's got on their shelf when they're doing a hangout. Lee.
You know, normally when I'm in a hangout, you can't shut me up at all. These last 2 weeks, all I've done is shut up and listen to Manny and Craig, and I've learned tons. Well, obviously you as well, Evan, but I've just learned tons, and even I'm taking loads away from this as well. So you know, there is something there for everybody, even if you think you know everything, you don't know everything. You can find me, have a look at my stream on G+. You can find me on Tuesday night. We've got a great hangout. Last week we did it. It was a complete mess. So we're going to have fun again this week, and you'll find out what I'm really like.
Oh, God, are they ready for that?
Yep.
I have to put out one really big plug, because it's getting hard to find guests. I really didn't know today what was going to be happening next week, because people aren't stepping up fast enough. So please, if you've got a project, or you know somebody who's got a project, a business, or anything else that they could do with having Ammonize, that, you know, they could do with, here's my brain for an hour, use it, get in touch. You can contact me here on G+, via YouTube, any way you like, really, or you can email me at my email address there. So that's it for us this week. Thank you very much, and we'll look forward to being back next week. Take care.
Thank you all. Bye now.